Hey Twitch, welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Coming to you live from AWS reInvent 2019 here in Las Vegas. We've got a great jam-packed session for you here. You can tell by the number of people we have on stage. So let's not waste any more time with intros. My name's Gabe, but let's go down the line. Who are you, wonderful people, and what do you do?
So, hi guys, my name is Yehor Chupin, and I'm working on behalf of Wolters Kluwer Company as a systems architect in solutions and design team.
Hello, my name is Manuel Elizalde Vieira. I'm the Solutions Design and Architecture Associated Director.
Howdy, I'm Paul Ormland. I'm a software development manager in AWS WAF.
I'm A.M. Grabelny, a solutions architect who I think we're paired on everything together.
That's right. It's just, you know, the Gabe and AM and Nikki show.
A package
comic
deal.
relief.
It's a package deal. It is comic relief. I don't know how comic it is, but we try. So let's just talk about what is AWS WAF to start us all off, Paul.
Yeah, so AWS WAF stands for the Web Application Firewall. It's a layer 7 firewall service that runs natively on AWS. We've got a couple different integration points where you can associate a web ACL or a web
Access
ACL.
control list.
Yep. To a CloudFront distribution. You can associate it to a application load balancer or to an API gateway. It gives you the ability to write rules that can protect your content from things like distributed denial of service attacks. You can use it to geofence your applications. You can use it to restrict or allow specific IP blocks. So it's a pretty robust service.
And it can filter or sanitize input too, right?
Say that again.
It can do like filtering and input sanitation.
Yeah. So as input comes in, we support text transformations. So you can write your rules, and before the web application firewall actually evaluates those rules, we can do things like convert to lowercase, get rid of white space, HTML decode or URL decode.
Yep. Super cool stuff.
I think too, something people often overlook, not something talked about often, is that it's a good way to centralize logging too into your applications, right? You can generate cloud.
Yeah, so we support, it's actually a really great triage feature, right? So when we think about your web application firewall, it's not about just protecting your apps,
right.
It's about understanding when you're attacked, how you're attacked, and being able to get the details about that.
Yeah.
So we support a feature that we call full logs, where you can turn this on and you can get per request logs that we can dump to Kinesis Firehose. Put somewhere like an S3, you can run EMR jobs on it, do things like find bad bots or malicious IPs in there.
Yeah. Cool. And what are we here to talk about today, specifically for AWS WAF?
Yeah, so what we're really excited about that we just launched a week ago is the new WAF API and the AWS Manage Rules. So we heard a lot from our customers that they love the flexibility within WAF. They love the ability to write custom rules. They love that they could actually go to the marketplace and get seller rules. But they wanted more options for one-click or managed rules. And so we launched a week ago what we call AWS Managed Rules. We've got a core rule set which protects against a lot of the OWASP top 10 type rules. We've got a subset of rules that do things like PHP protection, Windows protection, Linux, POSIX, as well as the one that we're most excited about is our IP reputation list.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so the IP reputation list is we have a threat research team that is constantly out looking for things like bad bots, open proxies, and they're gathering info using things like traffic that we see at Amazon, and they're storing that data in something that we call a threat database.
Okay.
And then what we're doing is our threat research team has some automation that's constantly trolling that threat database, looking for IPs that we consider bad with a bad reputation, and we're updating that rule. And so customers that apply that rule into their policies just kind of automatically get that protection, and they get a fresh set of rules as we find new IPs to add or remove from that list.
Nice. And so how do customers get started using these AWS Managed Rules for WAF?
Yeah, so we just launched a new API for AWS WAF. If you go to the console, it's the default in there. And so as you go in and you create your web ACL, there's a drop down that you can select, and we'll have a demo in a minute where you can see that, and you can create your own custom rules, or you can select a managed rule. You'll be able to select both either an AWS managed rule or a seller rule in there.
Okay, you talked about OWASP top 10 protection. We have a little bit of time, so maybe let's dig into that a little bit. Maybe some of our viewers don't even know what OWASP is. So The OWASP Top 10 is a list of the most common types of security vulnerabilities that the industry sees in web applications. And they're all codified, and it's a really good set, a checklist for all developers to be familiar with and to understand how to mitigate against each one of these types of threats. Do you want to give a few examples of some of the OWASP?
Yeah, so we've actually been giving a couple breakout sessions here, and the two that I've been highlighting the most in those are things like SQL injection, which is folks trying to execute malicious queries in your database, as well as cross-site scripting. In this day and age, we use a lot of content from other developers, other people, and so we want to protect our sites from malicious content that might get injected in there. Out of the box within AWS WAF, we have the ability to protect against SQL injection or cross-site scripting. You can just go in and add a custom rule, and you can say protect against SQLi or XSS.
Nice. If you don't know what SQL injection is, the idea is you don't want to just blindly take input from your users and drop it into a templated SQL query. So if I'm trying to look up a username for a login, I have a username and a password from somebody who submitted on a form, and somehow I'm going to have to query my database to say, find me the user named whatever they typed, and maybe check their password hashed against whatever I've stored in the database, hopefully securely. You don't want to just blindly take their username and drop it into that SQL templated string, because they could format their username as something that's not a good username, but just has like a quote mark, then like a semicolon, and then maybe like select true, and then select star from users where username equals admin, and now suddenly they're the admin user. Yeah. So or drop table, right? You can get yourself into a whole lot of pain. So I think it's worth just level setting there to make sure everybody understands the threat that SQL injection provides is very real, and you want to make sure you're protected. That's great that the managed rules help protect that.
Yeah, can I actually answer a question that we got in the chat there?
Please.
Where it's, how do customers test their WAF? One of the things that I think is pretty interesting in here is you can, as you apply firewall rules in your policy, you can put them in what we call count mode. And what that does is it'll actually execute the rule against the request, but it won't actually take a block action on that request. And so you can put any of those rules in there. And something that's new with the new WAF, we heard a lot of feedback from our customers that they do like being able to see in the logs that what rule group it was that triggered it, but they wanted a little bit more granular access, a little bit more knowledge about what specific rule it was. And now with the new WAF, you can actually go in and you can put individual rules in count mode to help you triage which rules may be causing you some false positives or stuff that's specific to your workload.
I think that's generally a good idea before you ever put any rule into production, is to probably just have it in count mode first to make sure you feel like it's firing the right times.
Yep.
Cool. We have these great customers on stage that haven't had a chance to talk yet, so let's pass the time over to them now. Do you want to talk a bit more about your company? What do you guys do, and how does that intersect with AWS WAF?
Yep. Wolters Kluwer is a global provider of professional information, software solutions, and services.
What kind of information?
We process information for financial systems, for health systems. We develop some sort of search engines and other solutions like processing data for all of them. I mean,
so you've got lots of important data that lots of companies want easy access to, and searchable access to. And you've built some applications to help expose that data in convenient ways to customers.
Yeah, one of the main systems in our organization is also to process tax data. And
like tax rules.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a crazy quagmire mess, and so anything companies can do to help make that more useful for the people who need it is valuable, right?
Yes.
And how are you using AWS today?
Well, we have multiple systems, back-end, front-ends. One of the main systems that we use is a public front-end where customers access the system and they process the information. The way that we use these implementations is that we need to focus a lot in security.
Yes, good.
And that's why we are here, because we were experimenting in the past with a lot of WAF and DDoS protection systems. We found that AWS was having one option.
Yep.
We were testing it. We were working with AWS WAF team, and And we will explain a little bit later how we do this.
Yeah, so maybe that's a good segue. What has your experience been like using AWS Web Application Firewall?
Yeah, so actually we had two kinds of experience with AWS. It was a past and current. So initially we were looking for some fluent, smooth, and nice firewall to protect our applications, to protect our environments. And one of the options was AWS WAF because it's native, and it's also we had good reviews and so on. So we made penetration testing tools, we tested it, we test performance. And frankly speaking, the first attempt was not perfect. We had some complaints in performance, in security, and one of the complaints was, let's say, flexibility. I cannot say that it's really bad thing. You can customize your data, it's flexible, but you have to have a dedicated security engineer for this, and sometimes it's not very useful for small teams, right? We told this to AWS, and thank you guys, you contacted us and provided for us access to a better version of managed WAF rules. We tested it again, and to tell you the truth, it's a big, big step forward. It's a nice improvement on security and performance. You still have ability to customize your rules in the way you want, but if you don't, you can just select AWS Managed Rules, and AWS will do anything for yourself, let's say.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
One important thing related to the comment that you were doing for the question is that how customers test AWS WAF. One of the approaches that we have is that we have pipelines with infrastructure as a code using OpsWorks or using any kind of CI/CD tool.
Yep.
The way that we do that is we trigger automatically penetration testing tools in QA environments and stage environments. Yeah. In that way, we see that AWS WAF is protecting us or not protecting us, and we make adjustments because not everything is perfect, of course. Sometimes we need to make adjustments, but it's automatically via pipeline, CI/CD, and using infrastructure as a code, applying the WAF protection in the load balancers or in the elastic IPs.
And let me add also the nice feature which was introduced, it's API.
Yep.
And with this API, I can add Manuel, so we can control our rules, and we can get the data which we can analyze with machine learning, with SageMaker, so to make some kind of adjustments in future.
Yeah, one of the things I think that's awesome about that too, we really highly encourage customers to use automation. One of the things that we did with our new API is we simplified the process of updating and creating rules, where before you'd have, we targeted a highly composable environment. So we broke all of the individual pieces of your policy down into individual calls, which works, and it did a really good job of helping to share rules. But one of the pieces of feedback that we got was that customers wanted an easy way to just kind of update their policies all in one swoop.
That's actually one of the questions from chat, I think very related to this, is how do the updates work? Can you do blue-green? Is it just all atomic? And how do customers plan?
Yeah, so the way that we built our new APIs is we have, we kind of simplified the model. It's a new JSON model API, so it's human readable. And so what we do is, we've seen a bunch of customers and actually some internal folks as well, that the way that they do that is they'll create a JSON document that they're using with source control. They're monitoring that, they're monitoring the changes. They'll put that on a test account, run their penetration testing through that, they'll check their rules, and then promote that to production. But the thing that's really great about the new API is it's a simple create call or update call. No multiple calls back and forth to update all of your
set this, connect these things together.
Yep.
Yep. Nice. Okay, well, this is probably a great segue to go straight into our demo at this point. We've got a demo video prepared that we're going to roll for you now so that everyone on Twitch can see a demo of this.
On the new AWS landing page, you've got quick access to creating a web app. You've got pricing information on the right bar, as well as a feature comparison between new WAF and AWS WAF Classic. The thing I like to point out is that with new WAF, you've now got access to AWS Manage Rules, as well as the existing seller rules from our AWS Marketplace. So let's jump in and create a web apple. I am in the US West Oregon region. I'm going to go ahead and call this my test. web apple. Description. And now I'm presented with an option of either associating this with a CloudFront or a regional resource type. I'm not actually going to associate it to an application load balancer or API gateway, but this is where I decide that. You can also, if you want to, at the end of the creation, have it automatically associated. You can pick which resource you want here. I'm not going to do that because we're just going to be walking through how to create a web apple. So the first thing we do after we give our web apple a name and pick what type it is, we come in and we have the ability to add rules. So for this web apple, we're going to use a mix between a custom rule that I've written using an IP set as well as some of the new AWS Manage Rules. So first thing we'll do is we'll go into the Manage Rules where we can see both the AWS Manage Rules as well as seller rules available in the marketplace where you can come in and subscribe. For this demo, we're going to use the Amazon IP reputation list as well as the core rule set. And one thing to notice is you've got the option to put each of these rule sets into count mode, meaning that it will process the request and tell you what it would have done, but it will not actually take action on the request. Or you can add it as though you want it to take action. So we're going to come in and add those rules. One thing to notice is you've got a progress bar here of how much of your capacity you're using. And as you can see, I'm using 725 WCUs out of my total 1,500 WCUs. And this allows you to mix and match custom rules as well as managed rules. You have a lot more flexibility. It's no longer based on the number of rules within your web apple. So next we're going to add our custom rule, which is a IP set. We're going to call this corp, as that's what we want. And we want to allow access from our predefined IP set. So we'll go ahead and click add rule. And the other thing that we want to do is we want to change our default to block. And so what this is going to do is since we're allowing the addresses from our corp IP set, we're going to block everybody else, essentially making the site not accessible. And because we want that rule evaluated first, we're going to move it to the top of the priorities. And here you're presented with an option to add CloudWatch metrics. We'll predefine some suggested names for you. You can change those if you want something that's more descriptive to your application. And then we'll come to the summary page where we'll just review all of the information and we will create our web apple. One of the really cool things that you can do with our new WAF is you've got rule level control within rule groups. And so if using an AWS managed rule here as an example, if I want to put an individual rule within the rule group into count mode while leaving all of the other rules effective, I can actually come in and override one individual rule. And what that's going to do is it's going to put that one rule in count mode while leaving all of the other rules in place. And so now I've got my web apple set up. I can come in at any point and associate it to a resource. And I can, again, modify any of my rules. And I can see at all points creating that how much WCU I've used as I've come in.
Awesome. Thanks for that demo. That
was
great.
Appreciate that.
So I'm just looking to see if we have any questions from chat before we wrap up. We've got about a minute left. I see a really nice comment that I'll mention live on stream from Fileburr saying the console UI flow is so much nicer. Before it felt like creating 5 records by hand and associating them like an RDBMS. Kudos to the team.
Yeah, thanks. That was actually a really big focus of the team. we really took a step back and tried to reimagine what that customer experience was, and really how customers, after the 4 or 5 years that we've been running this, what customers know that they want to do in there. And so we really appreciate that.
One more quick question from chat here. Do you give access to the raw rules within the managed ACLs or rule sets?
We give access to the names, but we don't actually make the individual rules themselves accessible.
OK. Good to know. All right, well, that's all the time we have for this session. Thank you so much for wonderful customers coming on stage to talk about your experience with managed rules for AWS WAF. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Stay tuned. We're going to go straight to the show floor here with MJ and Rudy from the training and certification team.